Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. You probably know who I am by now, unless it's maybe your first time listening. But either way, I'm Scott Haskin. I am your host on this fan-based podcast, so wonderfully supported by the band Uriah Heep themselves. And I'm really happy to share their music, the entire catalog, everything they've recorded in the studio and every bonus track. I'm going to have to change the intro because I realize the intro says every week I will bring you a song. And now I'm doing it like 4 days a week. So that doesn't even make any sense. So I'll update that at some point. Have more important fish to fry. Like this song that we're going to get into today, The Park, off of the Salisbury album. This is the second song we have covered. And it's a fun one. So we're going to get into that. But first, we have a couple things to talk about. So right now, it's kind of weird. My internet is down. I usually record the episodes a few days ahead of time and have them uploaded, but I've been busy with a couple of projects. So I'm just recording this tonight. You're going to hear it in the morning, but the internet is down. I called the internet company to see, if they had kind of an ETA. They have a wonderful little digital service, so I don't actually have to bother anybody. And it said that they expect it up. They're working on solving the problem, and they expect it up by 11:02, which I thought that's incredibly specific. 11:02. So we'll see. It's 8 o'clock here now. We'll see what happens. But fortunately, I don't need the internet to record. I only need the internet to upload the episode. So I'm going to do this, and hopefully it will be available at 2 a.m. Pacific time, as it usually is, which is like, 10 o'clock in London. And, depending on where you are, it's when it comes out. So I also want to take a moment and acknowledge my friends Nate and John over at the Deep Purple Podcast on their episode that came out yesterday. Well, it actually comes out Sunday night here in Nevada on the Pacific time zone. But they were very, very kind and mentioned some very nice things about the show. It was episode 68, Scarabus. And they do their thanks on their episodes, which are once a week. And they had a lot of really nice things to say about the podcast and about me, and I really appreciate it. You guys are great. I've been enjoying 86 episodes now. I can't believe it's been that long that you guys have been doing this. And I've been on their show a couple times. They've been on my other show. Great guys. Really have taught me a lot about a band that I thought I already knew a lot about, and they just proved me wrong. But it's a lot of great stuff, and it's a really fun show to listen to. I even enjoy, the banter that they have before they start talking about whatever the album is or the project that the show is about. Just really enjoyable just to listen to two friends that really get along well, that share a lot of similar passions and appreciation for music. And, they grew up together, so they're very familiar with each other. It's kind of like just going over to a friend's house that you're like, I haven't known these guys as long as these guys have known each other, but I just enjoy the stories and hearing different things like the Rhode Island facts and all that. So it's a cool show. Go check it out. It's the Deep Purple Podcast. It's available, I think, pretty much all the same places that this podcast is. So wherever you're listening, unless you're listening on my website, if you are, there is a link to the Deep Purple Podcast, and it is on every show that I put the links up for all the Deep Dive Network podcasts. So thank you guys very much. It was a nice smile to put on my face, and it was much appreciated, the things that you said. If I owe you money, just let me know. They've also got a merch store that they've just started on Etsy, which is pretty cool. So, good luck with that, guys. The merchandise looks really cool. T-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, really cool stuff. So, that's all the housekeeping stuff. Oh, no, there is one other very important thing I wanted to mention. Where is my note? I saw that Mick and I think Paul also posted that Ian Clark, now on this album on Salisbury, Keith Baker is the drummer. Come look at yourself. The next album that we're going to get into starting the end of next week, Ian Clark was the drummer on that album, and then followed up by Lee Kerslake, starting with Demons and Wizards. But he is actually involved in a very cool project, a new album that has just come out. He's working very hard with a charity involving musicians, and they're donating the proceeds of the album to the charity. I'm going to have the link in the show notes for you guys to check it out yourself. I would get on the internet and give you all the information, but like I said, I can't. And that had been my intention. But since the modem is just mocking me with green flashing lights instead of the blue ones that tell me it's actually connected to something, I'm somewhat helpless. So we're just going to go on, but I'll have that link in the show notes. It's very cool. Check it out. I just don't, I skimmed it really quick. I don't want to say anything that's incorrect. That would be worse than me just saying, hey, check out the link, which I hate doing, but check out the link. So now we're going to get into the second song of the Salisbury album. And here we're looking at 1971, I think. So in terms of what was going on in 71 musically, it was kind of all over the place. I mean, you had your pop groups that were coming over from the 60s, still kind of carrying over into the 70s, but you had a lot of rock and progressive rock starting up, and just your general pop and rock songs. There was so much happening, but the engineers were still trying to find their way in how they wanted to shape the new sound. And I think that the Salisbury album has a little bit better of a sound to it, but it's hard to compare that to Very Heavy, Very Humble, because those songs were all recorded differently. Some were recorded as Spice, some were recorded as Uriah Heep, different players. So it's kind of hard to compare sound-wise from one to the other. But this album definitely has a very cohesive sound. I love the mix of it, to be honest. It really adds a certain character. And I said before that one thing I really miss about this era is that every album really had its own personality. You could be a band that goes into the same studio every year and records an album, and every album's going to sound a little bit different. The miking technique might be different. They might have gotten a different console. They might just be doing things different a year down the road than they were as they've decided how they're going to mix music. The band might have a specific influence. Their equipment might have changed. I mean, there's so many factors. But nowadays you go in and you can go in every 2 or 3 years and make an album. The album sounds sonically the same as the last album did for the most part. And what I really love about this time is, from Very Heavy, Very Humble to Salisbury to Look at Yourself to Demons and Wizards. I mean, every album has its own personality in the atmosphere of it. And this is an album that I've always really just enjoyed the sound and the feel of it. I think the drums could have been just a little bit louder on the album overall. That's just me as a nitpicky engineer. I've been an audio engineer for about 30 years now, and that, we're going to have our little, I would like this better than that kind of thing. And that's fine. I think the mix is great. My personal taste aside, overall, it's a very cohesive sound. It's got a little bit of a mellow overtone to it, which I really like too. But I think that of all the songs that really enhance the mellow overtone side of the mix would probably be this one, because this is sort of the gentlest song on the album. It's not uncommon for a band to have this kind of song as a second song on a rock album. You come out with this blistering first opening song, and then you kind of dial it back a little bit for the second one. And that actually kind of went on through the 80s. There's some bands that still do that now, but it was the way that things were done, and that's quite fine. So when we're coming off High Priestess and the just freight train of a song that is, we're really dialing it back for this one. But there's some real just beautiful harmonies and overtones, and it just flows very nicely. This is the one I would say is kind of just where you could just lay back and put the headphones on and close your eyes and just enjoy it for what it is. And you know what? For the most part, that's what we're going to do. But we've got a couple of different versions. There was a bonus version on the deluxe CD, and we're going to play a little bit of that. It does have a little bit of a different sound to it, and it does have a couple of differences. It definitely was an edit of the first one, but a couple of interesting things about it. So we'll get to that after we go for the first song, obviously, as we always do. And let's just get into it. Here is The Park. So it's a beautiful opening to the song. I really like the rim shots and the shaker, just kind of setting a little bit of a gentle rhythm to get the song moving. And then you've got Ken coming in on the keyboard. What's really interesting about Ken's playing on this particular part is that you don't have him just hitting notes and chords. He's actually hitting almost the way that a drummer would do what's called a flam, where you hit the sticks one right after the other. So instead of hitting them the same time and just getting a louder hit, you're actually hitting him slightly after the first one. So you're getting like a very quick double hit. And you can hear as Ken is transitioning through the melody of this piece, he's actually doing quite a lot of that. And that's a little bit challenging to be precise, or at least it is for me. I'm certainly not the keyboard player Ken Hensley was, but or any of those guys were or are, but it's a little bit challenging to play. It's a little tricky to be precise, and he pulled that off very nicely. I don't know how many takes it took to get that, but Ken's a pro, so probably didn't take too long. But it just sets this really, really nice bed for the song to start off with. And then you have the guitars coming in, some really nice acoustic picking there. You could definitely hear the humanity in it, though, and I really like that. I really like the fact that there's one note that just kind of was struck a little bit harder than the rest of them. It really stands out to me, and it's just a beautiful thing. So you've got the rhythm starting with the drums and the shaker, then you've got the melody coming in with the keyboards, and then you've got a little bit of rhythm and melody coming in with the guitars. It just kind of picks you up and carries you away into the next part.
Let me walk a while alone among the sacred rocks and stones. Let me look in vain beneath upon the beauty of each leaf.
What a lovely, gentle vocal on top of that just delicate music bed. Very nice the way that this song just flows along. And, for somebody who's, used to harder edge singing from this band, it's really nice to see something a little more laid back and just really see the full dynamic range of the vocals that's possible in this band. I remember the first time I heard the Butterfly Ball and the Grasshopper's Feast, which John Lawton, one of Uriah Heep's later singers, sang a song on Little Chalk Blue. I remember listening to Ronnie James Dio, and he sings. He was a little guy, but he sang with such force, such power. Great rock singer. But then when it came to the Butterfly Ball, he's singing these songs like "Sitting in a Dream," where he's singing like this, very gentle, just not something you would expect would ever come out of him because you were used to something a little more aggressive and powerful. But it just goes to show the talent that's been in this band. Just amazing, the range of, not just the dynamic range, but the range of skill, knowing when to back off, how to sing, how to put that vibrato in and not make it too vibrato-y, so that it's annoying, but just has like a real, just like a gentle wave more than anything too quick. It's a really intricate work, but it's just beautiful the way it comes together in this song. Angelic. That's the word I've been looking for through all of this. The vocals are just angelic through this. Very just soft, gentle, carrying you away on a little cloud while they tell the story. It almost, to me, and I've said before that I'm not a big lyric guy, and for the most part, that's true. But it almost doesn't even matter what the song is about, because if you're just caught up in the music of it and just the voice as an instrument, it's a beautiful song to carry you away. But then when you start listening to the story, of course, you realize there's a little bit more going on. But it's just amazing. The step harmonies are evident here again, where Mick said that they had started to use those, and you can definitely hear it here. But just so precise, so everybody together, as one unit singing this. It's almost as if they were programmed to start and stop and move at exactly the same time. Very precise, but just very beautiful.
Above the sky, devoid of shroud, thinks not to cast a thunder shroud upon this race, so full of joy, so full of joy, of love's and blood, love's
The way that they did the vocals during this verse here is just gorgeous. But you figure if they can lay out melodies the way that they do, they certainly would be able to take that same skill and carry it over to vocals. But this is the first time that we're really hearing it to this level. Just beautifully designed, well crafted, and well performed. The way that they build the different phrases on top of each other. It's hard enough to do that, finding words that match and sound good together, but then to do it with the pitching that they do, just another beautiful twist in the song. So keep in mind that there were no click tracks back then. Everybody had to count. They had to know their plays. They had to know when to stop and start. You've got a lot of little different parts there to play. That's a lot to memorize, a lot to be concerned with being precise. But it sounds great. And I love the nice little lead in that Paul Newton does on bass to that next passage. It's really, it really flows very nicely from the last part into the next part. And obviously that's what you want a bridge to do. But no, it's played very well. And I love the tone that he's getting. It's not too overdone on the bass, but the bass is very important in this band. It's up a little higher in the volume than with most other bands, where usually it's the guitar and the keyboards, and then you've got the rhythm section, but they're usually a little bit less dominant in the mix. And the bass player usually is just kind of, it's almost like you can't hear the bass player a lot of times, but you can feel if they weren't there, more so than noticing that they are. And I really like how on these albums Paul really stands out, because I think his playing is very interesting, very well done. So it's an important component just as much as everything else. Whereas, like I said, with a lot of bands, it seems to be just something that blends in more than stands out. So plus, he's playing very interesting stuff as well, which helps. But I like the little change to the ride bell in that section. And it's just a nice little jazzy part to go into after the vocal harmonies.
So why my heavy heart, you say, when tears would stay, a sight so gay, my brother's dreams once he did so, until he died at the hand of needless woe.
What a powerful ending, and especially after you realize that this really is kind of a sad song about the brother that died, and you kind of understand why the music is a little bit somber and melancholy. But overall, the vocal harmonies really bring this out. The just flowing melody of the guitars, really nice song. It's not one that I would say I listen to every time I listen to Salisbury. I usually put the album down and I'll start listening to it, and then I just want to hear Salisbury. So I usually skip ahead to that, and then I'll go back and listen to a couple of the other songs and then back to Salisbury again. Because once I get that song in my head, I can't get it out of my head for a long time. And so you guys may experience that next week when we get to Salisbury. It's going to be a long episode. I'll just warn you, the song's 16 minutes long. We got 2 versions to cover. So that might not be one for the morning commute, but it's a great song, and so is this one. It's just it's really something that shows the gentle side of the band. It really shows what they can do. Even though you're a rock band, rock bands have their ballads, rock bands have their softer songs, and this is one that I really like because it shows the real full range. It shows what they're capable of, and they'll use this some of these styles in little parts in other songs. Some songs are more gentle than others, but this is probably one of their just one of their calmest, as far as that goes. But very beautiful, no distorted guitar or anything in it, not a heavy drum beat anywhere. The jazz was nice and light, that little section in the middle there. Just a very, very lovely song, and I'm glad I got to share it with you guys today. But we're not quite done yet, are we? No, we're not, because I did tell you that we have 2 versions of the song to listen to today. And I'm not going to go through the whole second version. I'm just going to point out a couple of the differences. The first difference, obviously, will be in the mix. Most of the time that bonus tracks are done for albums, they're mixed at different times, sometimes even by different people, in different studios, maybe even in different parts of the world. And so it's not surprising that a mix of a song would sound a little bit different than the original. But mainly, it's just a little bit brighter, I think, in the mix than the original song. And there's just a couple of differences. So if you recall, the studio version of the song starts out with the drums coming in and then the organ. So this one actually just starts right off the bat where the organ comes in. So no real lead in per se. It just kicks right off, almost more like what a radio edit would do. And maybe that's what this is. It's not that much different in length, just a few seconds that they trimmed, but that was part of it, just cutting off that extra little bit of the intro. It sounds okay. I guess I'm just so used to hearing it with that couple measures of drum intro before the keyboards start in that it just feels a little bit rushed right off the bat. And if a song feels rushed right off the bat, it kind of takes a while for you to get rid of that feeling, so that everything following it feels a little bit rushed. But had I heard this version first, I'm sure I wouldn't have thought twice about it. I would probably think that the version with the extended intro is weird. I don't know what that is. So you have the sound of somebody starting a tape with these background sounds in it. And it sounds like, they're at a park and there's, some children playing, but you hear some kind of scream thing in the background that's kind of offsetting. I don't know, maybe that's supposed to be representative of the war. Again, I tend to overthink things a lot, so maybe it means nothing, but it's just weird because you can actually hear them turn the tape on, which I'll play for you right now. It sounds to me like it's a girl child. So if I were to say, well, maybe it was, well, you don't really know if the character's a male or not. You assume the character's male singing about his brother. So you would think that it would be maybe two boys playing together if it was sort of an imagery representation of, their childhood and this person who's sad about the loss of their brother during war, reminiscing to their childhood. But it sounds like a girl, so I can't even go with that theory. I don't know. This is just kind of, it's kind of weird to me. And I'm not sure what the intention was behind it. I definitely feel like you're outdoors, at a park where kids are playing. I get that connection to the title, but I'm not sure if there's a connection to the story. I will leave that to your own, what do you feel? Because what I'm talking about is just what I feel. It's not necessarily right or wrong. It's just what I feel. And more so, it's just what I feel in the moment when I'm recording this and talking to you guys. So, 2 weeks from now, I might go back to this and go, you know what, that was actually kind of cool the way they had it because it made you feel like you were in nostalgia. There could be all kinds of things that I'll feel. But right now in this moment, it's kind of weird. And again, keep in mind that just because you hear a band put something out does not necessarily mean that these are their choices. I don't know what the case was here. I don't know if this was something that the record company did, that the engineer put in there. I couldn't tell you. I just know that it's there and it's in the bonus edition, not in the edition that was released with the album. So maybe somebody heard it and said, well, it's not really a good idea. In the version that we first listened to, you do hear a couple of bird chirps when it first goes into that jazz part. But apart from that, I mean, it's pretty barren of sound. Those are very specifically empty. Now, I will say in this version, these additional sounds do round out that silence nicely, but I have to say it's kind of a nice lead-in to have that emptiness there before the reveal of what the song's, actually about, which is the lament of this brother dying. So I would say that it's kind of like, oh, here's a happy memory. Oh, but he's gone. Oh, here's another happy memory. Yeah, but he's not here to share it with. And you have those ups and downs and those moments of joy and silence. And that's kind of what I've always felt that part was just those little bursts of memory and then the bursts of lost and the emotional swing between the two. Again, I could be completely out in left field. It's a lot of times when I write stuff, it's just music. It's just what worked. It's what I felt in the moment as a musician. Don't necessarily have anything behind it. In the beginning, I used to do that stuff, but I don't know what the intention was in this song, whether there was anything like that or not. It's certainly just a cool part, if nothing else. But if you want to read into it more, or if something strikes you or makes you feel something, then that's what music is all about. It's not always about why or how it was written. It's what it makes you feel like as a listener, what the meaning is to you, what emotions it brings up, what it causes you to want to do after the song is over. Whether you want to go back and listen to it again, whether you want to hurry up and tell somebody, oh my God, I just heard this cool song, you have to check it out. Or whether it's something that, just says, okay, that was good. Let's see what the next song on the album is. So all those components, that's what really matters. What emotions does this stir up in you? What does it make you feel? What does it make you want to do when you're listening to it? Does it make you just want to, put your arms behind your head, lay down and drift off? Does it make you want to start signing petitions that are anti-war? Does it make you think about a family member or a friend that you've lost along the way? That's the power of music. That's the real power of music. What we do as musicians is we entertain people, and we play what we feel, especially back then when it wasn't so governed by record companies. They were allowed to experiment and do different things and, play around and see what worked and find their sound. It doesn't work quite that way now, but as an independent musician, I get to do that. But even what I write a song about, whatever's in my head when I'm writing something, whatever, visuals I might be seeing and showing you how I feel it musically, it's irrelevant. It's what happens when you close your eyes and listen to the music. It's what you enjoy the musicians doing, what you like and what you don't like, what you would change, what you want to hear differently, what you are glad they put in there. All of those components are what makes a song important. And that's why music is so individual. I mean, we could get together. I could sit down with you guys and say, hey, I really like this song. Here's why I like it. And some of you guys will go, it's not one of my favorites. And others will go, yeah, it's a good song. And others will go, I love this song. And that's all fine because the music is there for everybody to feel the way they feel. There's no right or wrong about it. And that's why I don't get into, the ratings and all this, arguments about what's the best song and this version is better than that version. I really just don't give a shit because at the end of the day, all that matters is, do I like what I'm hearing? Do I want to hear more? Do I want to share it with somebody? Obviously, I love Uriah Heep's music. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing a whole damn podcast on it. But that is the stuff that's important to me anyway. And all the other stuff that goes along with it. Yes, we care about the musicians. We care about what happens to them. We're interested in them. But what we're focusing on here is mainly the music. And it's very important to just keep that perspective of, does this make me happy? Does this make me inspired to hear it again as soon as it's over? Of course, that was harder in the days of cassette because then you had to rewind it and try and find the spot. And then on an LP, you're trying to find the groove in between the songs. If like those of you guys who the arms were a little too light, so we had to tape a couple of pennies to the needle to keep it down on the record so it wouldn't skip as much. And just all those little things that make the nostalgia part of it also a factor. But if this is the first time you're hearing the song, I would lay that out to you guys. What does it make you feel? What does it inspire in you? Or do you not like it? Everything's fine. There's no right or wrong answers. It's all up to you and how it strikes you in this moment. The other thing I would say is, especially if you're hearing this for the first time, there's always those other factors of, well, I'm not in the best mood, so maybe it wasn't the right time to expose yourself to a brand new song. Or, you know what, I'm in a good mood and this brought me down. Or I wasn't in a good mood and it just made me relax and it made my problems kind of melt away until I found out it was about the death of a brother. But that's what music is all about. And that's why I love sharing music. I love writing it. I love doing this podcast because I'm getting to share some really amazing music made by some unbelievably talented and creative people and share it with you guys. So many people know this music already. A lot of you that are listening are already familiar with the music, but there's people that are just coming to it now. And thank you guys, all of you, for giving it a chance, for listening to the show, for all the support. It's been absolutely amazing. And, speaking of support, I just want to let you know where you guys can find the podcast information besides just where you're listening right here. Of course, you can go to the website, scotthaskin.com, and click on the Uriah Heep link. Then you can also go to Facebook at facebook.com/UriahHeepPodcast. You can also find us on Twitter at Heep Podcast, Instagram at UriahHeepPodcast, and our email, of course, is UriahHeepPodcast@gmail.com. But that wraps it up for this one, guys. So we are 2 songs into Salisbury tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. So tomorrow's Wednesday, and that is normally the day for my other podcast, but I'm taking that off this month and focusing on another project that I'm working on. But if you guys do want to listen to that, I just did a review of Blackmore's Night's new Christmas EP that they put out. So it's right in time for the holiday season. If you're a fan of Renaissance music, of Christmas music, go check it out because it's really good stuff. I'm a big fan of their album Winter Carols and really enjoyed the new EP. So I did just a little review of it, playing some snippets of the songs. And it was actually, a real joy to do. So that's it, guys. We'll see you on Thursday for the 3rd song in the Uriah Heep season for Salisbury. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!